Jónas Hallgrímsson was an Icelandic poet, author and naturalist. He was one of the founders of the Icelandic journal Fjölnir, which was first published in Copenhagen in 1835. The magazine was used by Jónas and his fellow Fjölnismenn to promote Icelandic nationalism, in the hope of giving impetus to the Icelandic Independence Movement. Jónas remains one of Iceland's most beloved poets, penning some of the best-known Icelandic poems about Iceland and its people. Biography. Jónas was born in the north of Iceland, in Oxnardalur in Eyjafjörður. He was the son of Hallgrímur Thorsteinsson, a curate, and Rannveig Jónadóttir. He was the third of their 4 children. His siblings were Thorstein, Rannveig and Anna Margrét. In 1816 Jónas' father drowned in a lake and Jónas was sent to live with his aunt. In 1821 he returned home to Oxnardalur to be confirmed, before going away to a school in Skagafjörður, where he was taught by the Reverend Einar H. Thorlacius. He studied there for 2 years, and won a scholarship to attend the school at Bessastaðir for a further 6. After passing his final examinations in 1829, Jónas moved to Reykjavik and was employed by a sheriff as a clerk, living in his home. During this time, he also worked as a defense lawyer. It is said that sometime in the winter of 1831 to 1832, Jónas proposed to a woman called Christiane Knudsen, but he was rejected. He was heartbroken. In 1832, he sailed to Denmark, and passed the entrance exam for the University of Copenhagen. He began working for a law degree, but after 4 years switched to literature and natural sciences, excelling in both subjects. In 1835, along with fellow Icelandic students Brynjolfur Petjursson, Konráð Gylfason and Thomas Simonsen, he founded the patriotic journal Fjölnir. After graduation he was awarded a grant from the state treasury to conduct scientific research in Iceland, a project which he worked on from 1839 to 1842. He continued to pursue his interest in the natural history of Iceland, and to work on Fjölnir throughout his life, dividing his time between Denmark and research trips to Iceland. It was in Fjölnir that many of his poems and essays first appeared. Jónas also worked as a translator of foreign material, including scientific works. In these can be found many of the Icelandic words coined by Jónas. One of these, for an example, is reikistjarna, meaning planet. This is a compound word from the verb athreika and the noun stjarna. On the 21st of May 1845 in Copenhagen, Jónas slipped on the stairs up to his room and broke his leg. He went to the hospital the next day, but died of blood poisoning, aged only 37. Style. Jónas is considered one of the founding fathers, and best examples, of Romanticism in Iceland. The imagery in his poetry was strongly influenced by the Icelandic landscape. He is also known for introducing foreign meters, such as pentameter, to Icelandic poetry. Charming and fair is the land, and snow-white the peaks of the Jökuls. Cloudless and blue is the sky. The ocean is shimmering bright, but high on the lave fields, where still Osar river is flowing down into Almanna Gorge. Holding no longer is held. Now Snorrisboot serves as a sheepfold. The ling upon Logberg the sacred is blue with berries every year, for children's and ravens' delight. O ye juvenile host and full-grown manhood of Iceland! Thus is our forefathers' fame forgotten and dormant withal. Iceland translated by Goodman J. Gylfason Beck, Richard, editor, Icelandic Lyrics. Controversy over Jónas remains. In 1946, the bones of Jónas Hallgrímsson were moved from Copenhagen to Iceland in a controversy known in Icelandic as the Bænamalið. while ostensibly a national triumph. The reburial has been argued to have been an enormously problematic exercise in hegemony by Iceland's post-independence elites, and instead of uniting the nation, the episode uncovered a great divide within the people of Iceland. Quote, "The main campaigner behind this was Sigurjón Pétursson, an admirer of Jónas who claimed to be in telepathic communication with the dead poet and wanted to rebury his remains in Oxnardalur, where Jónas grew up. Sigurjón came up against serious opposition from a number of the political elite, including Olafur Thors, who was then Prime Minister of Iceland. The government informed him that Jónas bones were state property, and would be buried at the national burial ground at Þingvellir, alongside the poet Einar Benediktsson. However, the government proved unwilling to finance the excavation and transportation. Sigurjón covered most of the cost, even paying for Mattias Þórðarson, the director of the National Museum, to oversee the excavation. The process was a lengthy one, because a father and son had been buried on top of Jónas in 1875, and another couple in 1900, and they needed to be excavated first. Finally, Sigurjón was able to transport the remains to Iceland. He drove north with them, intending to bury them in Oxnardalur in defiance of the government, but the priests refused to perform the rites. The coffin stood in a church for a week before being driven back south and buried in the government's chosen spot on the 16th of November, Jónas' birthday. Since 1996, the date has been celebrated in Iceland as Icelandic Language Day. The controversy, its motivations and outcomes were satirized by, amongst others, Halldór Laxness's 1948 novel Atomstöðin and Milan Kundera's Ignorance.